Have you ever walked into a room and found an elderly loved one sitting in the same spot, staring off into space, and you couldn't quite put your finger on what was different? It wasn't that they seemed sick, or even sad. It was just a kind of quiet that felt deeper than usual, a stillness in their eyes, a subtle shift that you couldn't explain. Maybe they weren't laughing like they used to. Maybe they weren't telling their usual stories. Or maybe they were simply a little quieter than they had been before. It's the kind of moment that makes you pause. And it's not that we're afraid of aging, or that we're looking for signs of something tragic. But the truth is, with time, things change. And sometimes, the most meaningful changes happen so gently, so subtly, that we don't even recognize them at first. It's as if life itself has slowed down for a moment, and in that stillness, we have a chance to reflect, to notice, and to understand something important. Today, we're diving into one of the hardest, yet most necessary conversations we can have, recognizing the subtle signs that an elderly loved one may be nearing their final year. This isn't about fear, and it's not about tragedy, it's about awareness. It's about paying attention to the small shifts that often go unnoticed. The things that may seem like normal aging, but upon closer look, are part of a much bigger picture. And while no one likes to think about the end of life, we're all human. We can't avoid it, and we shouldn't try to. What we can do, though, is learn how to notice the subtle signs that indicate someone we love may be preparing to say goodbye, whether it's in a year, in 6 months, or even sooner. These signs aren't always obvious. They don't come with alarms or flashing lights. They aren't dramatic or scary. In fact, they can be so quiet that we might miss them entirely if we're not paying attention. And that's why, today, I want to share with you 5 signs to look for, signs that might help you recognize when someone is entering their final year. Not all elderly people will show these signs, and not every sign is a guarantee. But understanding them can help you respond in a way that's loving, compassionate, and full of understanding. I want you to think about someone you love, whether it's a parent, a grandparent, a close friend, or even yourself. Take a moment to reflect on their recent changes. Are they different in ways that go beyond what we might call just getting older? It could be something as simple as no longer picking up the phone as often, or something as significant as choosing to withdraw from social gatherings they used to enjoy. These aren't always easy to spot, especially when life gets busy or when we're focused on our own routines. But recognizing the changes in those we love can help us provide the care, love, and presence they need. So, before we dive deeper into these signs, let me tell you a story. It's a story about a woman named Grace, who was 89 years old when her family began noticing some subtle changes in her behavior. Grace had always been the life of the party. She'd hosted the biggest family dinners, told the funniest stories, and never missed a Sunday brunch with her neighbors. But over the course of a few months, her family began to realize something had shifted. Grace was no longer the first to arrive at family gatherings, and she often turned down invitations, citing that she wasn't feeling well. Her once lively presence became quieter. She started forgetting things, a few words here and there, the names of some of her old friends. And then, one day, she asked her daughter if she could visit her old home, the one she had sold 20 years ago after moving into her daughter's house. Her daughter was puzzled but agreed. When they arrived, Grace stood at the door, staring at the house. She didn't say much at first, just looked around, and then quietly said, "I guess it's time I let it go. I'm ready." And it wasn't just the house she was letting go of. Grace had begun, in her own way, to prepare for her final chapter. Her family was shocked. They hadn't seen it coming. But looking back, they realized there had been subtle signs along the way, things they had missed or dismissed as just aging. Grace's withdrawal wasn't about depression. It was a quiet, graceful letting go. She wasn't sick. She wasn't in pain. She was simply transitioning, ready to move into the next phase of her life. When Grace passed away a few months later, her family understood that they had witnessed something profound. It wasn't just her death. They had been present for her life's last few moments. The subtle changes they hadn't understood at first had become their invitation to show up in a deeper way. They had the chance to sit with her, to share quiet moments, to ask questions, and to say the things that needed to be said. I'm telling you this story because this is what we're here to understand today. These changes, the quiet shifts, the small moments, the pauses in conversation, are not always something to fear. They are part of the process. They are part of aging. And when we know what to look for, we can be more present, more compassionate, and more loving. It's never easy to watch someone age, especially when those changes seem to come too quickly. But there's something powerful in knowing what's happening beneath the surface. When we understand the signs, we don't feel so helpless. We feel empowered to respond with care, with understanding, and with presence. We feel like we can be there in a way that truly matters. So, as we explore the 5 signs today, remember this: these aren't just indicators of decline. They are part of the natural flow of life. They give us the opportunity to make the most of the time we have left with those we love, to ask the important questions, to say the things that matter most, to make peace with the inevitable, and to walk alongside our loved ones, hand in hand, into their final chapter. As we move forward, keep in mind that not every sign means someone is near the end, but understanding these signs can help you respond more consciously, more lovingly, and more intentionally. And when you do, you create a space where both you and your loved one can find peace, grace, and connection. Now that we've talked about the power of recognizing the subtle shifts in our loved ones, it's time to look at the first 2 signs that might indicate an elderly person is nearing their final year. These aren't dramatic or obvious changes. They are often so small that they can be easy to overlook. But when you know what to look for, they become powerful signals. Sign 1. A sudden withdrawal or loss of interest in social activities. One of the first signs that may appear is a sudden, almost unexplainable withdrawal from social activities. This isn't the usual slowing down that happens as we age, where someone may simply choose to stay home more often. No, this is something different. It's a loss of interest in things that once brought joy and connection. Perhaps your loved one has always been active in their church community, or maybe they loved hosting family dinners or chatting with neighbors in the front yard. And suddenly, they don't seem as eager to participate. At first, it may seem like they are just tired or maybe a bit less energetic than usual. But over time, this withdrawal can deepen, and the reason is more profound than just physical fatigue. This kind of withdrawal can be emotionally charged. For some elderly people, this is a way of subconsciously beginning to detach from the world around them. It's not that they no longer care about their family or friends, but more like they are pulling away in preparation for the inevitable change. It's a quiet, internal shift, one that allows them to face the final phase of their life with dignity, without the constant need for social interaction or stimulation. And while it can be incredibly painful for family members, this is often a sign that they are trying to make sense of their life and the transition that's coming. It's important to note that this withdrawal doesn't necessarily mean they are in pain or depressed. They may simply feel a need to reflect and process their life in a more solitary, quiet way. What can you do when you notice this sign? First, don't take it personally. While it might feel like rejection, it's often not about you. Your loved one may need some space, but that doesn't mean they don't need you. Respecting their need for quiet time is important, but also make sure they know that you're there for them whenever they do need you. Keep the door open. Drop by unexpectedly with a gentle reminder that you care. It's the small acts of kindness and patience during these times that mean the most. Sign 2. A sudden or noticeable decline in physical health or mobility. The second sign to be aware of is a sudden or noticeable decline in physical health or mobility. This can be tricky because we're all used to seeing our elderly loved ones slow down over time. But when the decline is more rapid or pronounced, it may be a warning sign that they are in the final phase of life. For example, you may notice that your loved one is having more difficulty with basic tasks they once did easily, like getting out of a chair, walking upstairs, or even preparing a meal. You might see them lose weight, or they may complain more frequently of aches and pains that weren't an issue before. This decline in physical health is often not caused by a single event, but rather by the body's natural aging process accelerating as the end of life approaches. What many families don't realize is that physical decline can be a sign that the body is simply starting to give out. It's not necessarily a result of a specific illness or disease. It could be the body's way of preparing for the final stage, as organs and systems slow down in sync with the end of life. One of the key indicators to look out for is a sudden increase in fatigue or lethargy. If your loved one, who once had a reasonable level of energy, is now sleeping more often or seeming unusually exhausted after basic activities, it could signal that their body is starting to conserve energy for what's to come. This is particularly common as people near the end of their lives, as their bodies begin to shut down. Another physical sign to watch for is a loss of appetite. As the body prepares for its final stages, the need for nourishment diminishes. Your loved one may begin eating less, losing interest in food, or forgetting to eat altogether. This isn't always about a loss of taste or digestive issues. It's more about the body's natural process of slowing down, as it no longer requires as much fuel. While this decline can be deeply concerning, it's important to remember that this is often a natural part of the process. It's not something to fight against, but rather something to understand. Helping your loved one maintain comfort during this time becomes crucial. Offer them nourishing, easily digestible foods, and make sure they are hydrated. But more importantly, focus on making them feel comfortable and loved, regardless of how much they eat or how mobile they are. Responding to these signs with compassion. When you notice these signs in your loved ones, it's easy to feel overwhelmed or uncertain about what to do. But remember, these changes are part of the natural aging process, and while they may be difficult to witness, they also offer an opportunity to show up for your loved one in a way that matters. In the case of withdrawal from social activities, don't push them to engage if they are not ready, but let them know you're there. Drop by for short visits, share memories, or simply sit in silence. Your presence will mean more than any words. As for the decline in physical health, it's essential to prioritize comfort over anything else. Help them with daily tasks, offer to assist with mobility, and be mindful of their need for rest. Above all, offer unconditional love and reassurance during this time, even if they seem distant or withdrawn. Now that we've explored the first two signs, we're moving into the third and fourth signs that might indicate an elderly person is nearing their final year. These next signs can sometimes feel especially difficult to acknowledge, but they are just as important. Recognizing them isn't about fearing the end. It's about showing up with the compassion, love, and understanding that everyone deserves, especially in their final stages. Sign 3. Increased confusion or memory loss. One of the most common signs that people notice as elderly individuals approach the end of their life is a noticeable increase in confusion or memory loss. Now, it's important to understand that some level of memory loss is natural as we age, but when this confusion becomes more pronounced or rapid, it may be an indication that the end of life is approaching. For many elderly people, this memory loss isn't just about forgetting where they put their keys or what they had for breakfast, although those things do happen. It can become more about forgetting the details of their daily life. They may ask the same questions repeatedly, or they might forget who visited them just an hour earlier. They may forget the names of close family members or even seem confused about the day of the week. It can also manifest in the inability to recognize familiar places or faces, which can be heartbreaking for both the person experiencing it and their loved ones. This level of confusion is often caused by the body's gradual slowing down of its cognitive functions. As the body prepares for the final stages, the brain's ability to process and recall information diminishes. This is often due to a combination of age-related changes, a decrease in overall health, and the body's natural decline as it enters the final phase of life. If you notice your loved one becoming more confused or forgetful, don't try to correct them constantly. Instead, focus on keeping them calm and reassured. Let them know they are safe. When they repeat the same question, answer it gently, even if it feels repetitive. Redirect them if needed, but always do so with love and kindness. You can also try to create an environment of familiarity and comfort, with familiar objects or routines, which may help ease the confusion they are experiencing. While it's distressing to see a loved one forget things they once knew so well, it's important to remember that this is a natural part of the process. It's not about loss of intelligence, it's the body's way of gradually letting go. Showing patience, offering reassurance, and remaining present is one of the most powerful things you can do during this time. Sign 4. Talking about death or preparing for goodbye. This next sign is often one of the most challenging for families to accept, because it brings the reality of the situation into clear view. And yet, It's also one of the most profound signs that an elderly person may be preparing for their final year. They start talking about death or preparing for their goodbye. When someone begins talking about their own death, it can feel unsettling. They may say things like, "I don't have much time left," or "I think it's my time soon." They might even express thoughts about what they'd like to happen when they are gone, or who should be in charge of their affairs. These conversations can be deeply uncomfortable, especially when they come from someone who has always been full of life and vitality. But it's important to understand that these conversations are often a way for the individual to process their feelings and to make peace with the reality of their situation. Talking about death doesn't always mean someone is actively trying to end their life. It's often just part of the natural process of letting go. It's a way of acknowledging that the body is tired, that their journey is nearing its end, and that they want to make sure their loved ones are prepared for what's to come. They may want to share final wishes, reminisce about their life, or simply make peace with the fact that their time on earth is limited. These conversations can be incredibly difficult for family members to navigate. It's natural to want to avoid talking about death, especially when it feels too soon or too painful. But by engaging in these conversations with empathy and openness, you can offer your loved one the opportunity to express their feelings, clarify their wishes, and find peace in knowing they won't be a burden on those they leave behind. If your loved one begins talking about death or making preparations for their passing, try to create a space where they feel comfortable sharing their thoughts. Let them know you're listening, and that you honor their feelings. Share your own feelings with them too, as this can create a more open, connected conversation. It may be one of the most healing conversations you ever have with them, even though it may also be one of the most difficult. If they are able, help them with any practical matters they wish to arrange, whether it's creating a will, arranging for funeral services, or making sure that their possessions are passed on according to their wishes. But also take the time to simply be with them, to sit in the quiet moments and share love, comfort, and understanding. Responding to these signs with love and care. When we see these signs of increased confusion or talk of death, it's easy to feel like something is being lost or taken away. But what if we reframed our thinking? What if these signs weren't just about the inevitable end? What if they were opportunities to deepen our connection with our loved ones and help them transition peacefully? Remember, no matter how uncomfortable these signs may feel, they are part of the natural process of aging. When we respond with empathy and love, we offer our loved ones the dignity, respect, and presence they deserve in their final days. So, when you notice the confusion creeping in or hear those difficult words about death, hold space for them. Let them express what they need to, and let them know you're there. The simple act of being present can make all the difference in the world. As we reach the final part of our video, we've explored some of the most subtle and profound signs that an elderly person may be nearing their final year. Now, let's take a closer look at the final sign, one that, although often difficult to talk about, can be a crucial piece in the puzzle of understanding what's happening in the life of our loved ones. Sign 5. Sudden changes in breathing patterns or sleep disturbances. The fifth sign to be aware of is a sudden change in breathing patterns or noticeable sleep disturbances. This can be a particularly unsettling change, as it's a physical signal that the body is preparing for its final stages. It might start with irregularities in their breathing, shortness of breath, deep sighing, or even periods of breathing that feel labored. You may notice that their breathing seems to become shallow or more erratic, and at times, it might almost seem like they are struggling to get air. This change in breathing isn't always tied to a specific medical issue. Instead, it's often a natural sign that the body is slowing down and that the vital systems are starting to wind down. As the body moves closer to the end, the ability to take in oxygen and exhale becomes more challenging, especially if the person has a terminal illness or is near the final stages of life. Alongside these changes in breathing, sleep disturbances can also occur. Your loved one may have difficulty staying asleep, or they may experience restless nights filled with tossing and turning. Conversely, they might sleep excessively, showing little interest in getting up during the day. These changes are not only exhausting for them, but can be a sign of the body entering a phase of rest and preparation for what's to come. For many, these physical signs are among the clearest indicators that the body is beginning its final journey. If you notice these changes, Don't panic, and don't feel helpless. Instead, focus on keeping your loved one comfortable and at ease. Helping them maintain a peaceful environment, with soft lighting and soothing sounds, can provide great comfort during this time. You can also talk to their healthcare provider to ensure they are receiving the right support, whether it's pain management, oxygen therapy, or simply more guidance on how to care for them during this phase. While it's natural to feel deeply worried or saddened by these changes, remember that this is also an opportunity for you to be there for them in a meaningful way. Being present, simply sitting by their side, holding their hand, or offering quiet words of reassurance, can make all the difference in their comfort. Wrapping up, living through the final stages with grace and love. Recognizing the signs that an elderly person may be nearing their final year isn't about expecting the worst or giving up hope. It's about understanding the natural rhythm of life and preparing ourselves, as well as them, for the next phase. These subtle signs are reminders for us to show up fully for our loved ones, to be there with compassion, patience, and understanding. In the end, we all face this moment, and while it's an incredibly emotional experience to witness, it's also a deeply personal one. The greatest gift you can give to an elderly person in their final year isn't something material, it's your presence. Be there, not just in the moments when they need care, but in the moments when they need your love, your understanding, and your respect. Let them feel your support in the small gestures, the quiet conversations, the comforting touch, and the shared memories. As you move forward from this video, take a moment to reflect on the loved ones you have in your life. If you see these signs, or even if you don't, make sure that you're connecting with them in meaningful ways. Reach out, take a walk with them, sit down and listen, or simply share a laugh. The time you spend with your elderly loved ones is precious, and by acknowledging these subtle signs, you're giving them the gift of knowing they are not alone. And remember, it's never too late to make a difference. Sometimes, the most important thing we can do for our elderly loved ones is to offer a listening ear, a warm embrace, and a willingness to be there, no matter how difficult the situation may seem. Thank you for joining me in exploring these 5 subtle signs that an elderly person may be nearing their final year. I hope this video has given you valuable insight into how to recognize these changes with compassion and understanding. If you found this information helpful, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more content on elderly wisdom and life's most important lessons. And if you've experienced similar changes with your loved ones, or if you have any thoughts on today's topic, I'd love to hear your stories. Leave a comment below and share your experiences. You're not alone in this journey, and your voice matters. Thank you for being here, and remember, life is a precious gift. Let's cherish every moment with those we love. See you in the next video.